Hi there, and welcome to another edition of the Premier Investments and Wealth Management Financial Program. My name is Doug Wagner, and I'll introduce the gentleman around the table to you here in a second. But first thing I want to do is direct you to premieriwm.com, where if you click Get Started, just answer a few questions, they'll provide for you the beginning of your financial plan. It's called the Premier Vision Document, and it's one page. It's very graphically oriented, and they'll even sit down with you free of charge and go through the plan with you and explain what in reality is hundreds of pages behind that one page in the Premier Vision document, because your financial plan is set for you, what your goals are, your desires, your wants, your needs, what resources do you have, what do you want for your retirement? That's what they take into account. It's not some cookie cutter. Everybody's got the same one. Yours is individually done at Premier Investments and Wealth Management. It's one of the reasons why they were named Forbes 2025 Best in State Wealth Management Teams, is because they'll work with you in order to figure out what your goals of retirement are and how you can get there. PremierIWM.com, click Get Started, or you can call 800-383-6590. Let's start on the end of the table with the Vice President, Wealth Advisor, and he's the new sheriff in town. It's Elias Randel. He is a Certified Exit Planning Advisor, SIPC. What is a Certified Exit Planning Advisor?
So it is a fancy credential. So I am now credentialed to help business owners, one, do a preliminary valuation of their company, which would be considered an opinion of value based on certain questions and metrics. And it's really a philosophy of aligning their business, personal, and financial goals. So a certified exit planning advisor, that's the value they can provide, is helping a business owner client determine the value of their company within a range of values, and then align the three different parts of their life.
It's awesome because you just get this point right here. This is not just talking about retirement, and it's not just talking about your finances, and it's not just talking about 401ks and IRAs and Roth IRAs. There's a lot of stuff that's tied up that they can sit down with you and go over as well. Like Jonas Everett, he's been doing this over 30 years of experience in the investment industry. He's a wealth advisor. Jonas, you run into, I would imagine, nearly every foreseeable situation at this point. Has anything happened that surprises you anymore?
Always surprised. It seems like you and I have been on the radio for over 10 years now together.
15 years.
15?
Yeah.
I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, I know. They should have fired me a long time ago. What the hell were they thinking? That is too good. See, this is something where the new folks that come in here, I know Casey's been here, I don't know how many years, a decade now? Yeah, 11 years, and the 11 years of experience in the investment industry. He's a certified financial planner, professional, CFP, accredited investment fiduciary, and a wealth advisor. Dr. Casey Mushrush.
Just to you, Doug.
Yep, just to me.
When you were talking about your intro, you were talking about the Premier Vision document. You want to know one of my favorate things about that document?
What's that?
None of us had anything to do with the design, so it has more than two colors.
Yeah, that's good. I know there's a lot of gray going on.
More than black and white.
Yeah,
so
exactly. That's a good idea. And that's one of the nice things about it, is that it's going to be something that you can utilize along with the financial plan and your wealth advisor. You sit down with them and you go over your plans and your ideas, where you're starting from and where you want to end up. Like we go to Elias's first question from Steve. Explain the 4% withdrawal and how it works. Does the 4% apply to my total retirement savings, even if I'm getting income already from Social Security and a pension? Or how do those fixed payments factor into how much I should withdraw from my portfolio each year?
This is a triple, 3 questions in one. Here.
It's a ba-da-bing.
So, can I explain the 4% withdrawal rule? Yes, I can. It is a rule that's been used in personal finance. It's widely adopted and considered to be the safe withdrawal rate. So let's assume you have $1 million. 4% withdrawal rule would state you're going to take $40,000 annually from the portfolio. Next part of the question, does the 4% rule apply to my total retirement savings if I'm already getting income from Social Security and a pension? when people talk about that, they're only referring to your retirement portfolio. They're not referring to your fixed income sources such as Social Security and a pension. So let's talk about retirement spending and retirement income. 4% withdrawal rule. We have a different belief for spending money in retirement. I do think this is a decent rule of thumb that can give you guidance and get you on the right path. I don't think people should be designing their income strategy around this rule. And that's for
30,000 foot level you're talking about. That's what this is. The 4% is just like the big overview, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You get down into the weeds with them.
A little bit. And it was developed by a financial planner. His name's William Bengen. He's revised the safe withdrawal rate over the years. It has a few assumptions. It assumes, I believe, either a 50% stock to 50% bonds or a 60% stock to 40% bond portfolio. And he's revised what he believes it is. I think if you were to just simply think about the returns over the last decade, you can pretty easily make an argument that people could be spending more than 4% of their total portfolio. Mm-hmm. So here's some good, let's talk order of operations on spending. If you just list these down on paper, fixed income sources, so Social Security and pension, mm-hmm. those are going to come first. And next is going to be your investment accounts. So IRAs, Roth IRAs, and then any non-retirement accounts that you have. Retirees typically spend money in 3 phases. The go-go phase of retirement, which this is when you first retire and you have increased cost of typically activities because you have more leisure time. Mm-hmm. And it can even just be gas in a vehicle. The number of retired people that tell me, I didn't know we were going to spend this much money filling up our vehicles in retirement. Mm-hmm. All you're eliminating is your commute to work, which is a fixed travel distance every day. Well, when you're retired, you might go to the donut shop in the morning and then go get a haircut. Oh, you know some people at the golf course hanging out, so you're going to go do that. People, I think, underestimate. That's one expense I believe they underestimate, and a small one. Right. But the philosophy of the go-go phase is you're going to be spending more money, and I would tell you should spend more money.
You've earned it.
You have earned it. The next phase of retirement is the slow go phase, which is where spending starts to level off. So people who travel less. People who like to go shopping for antiques. What's that? What's the word for antiquing? Or
antiquing.
What's
the
junking. Show? Junking.
Junking. Oh,
American I can't come pickers. Up with the term. Pickers.
Yeah,
picking. Gotcha. The people that like to go picking. Go picking less. People that golf less, mm-hmm. right? You're getting to an age where you physically aren't, you can't keep up like you used to. Or
emotionally, I'm done. I'm just like,
yeah, or been there, done that.
Yeah.
And then spending transition to what we call the no-go phase. Mm-hmm. Your activity costs come down, and a lot of times your healthcare costs rise in that last phase of life. So we believe your withdrawal rate should be unique to you and those different phases of retirement. One very simple thing we can do is define what's your maximum spending. Well, if you look at what someone could maximum spending annually and spread that out over 35 years, that's going to be one answer. But if you tailor it to, let's say I'm 60 and I really want to go hard from 60 to 75. I want to do all these things. Mm-hmm. I want to spend my money. I'm not as concerned about legacy planning and leaving money for my kids. That's a totally different number because what a portfolio can sustain for 10 to 15 years is different than what it can sustain for 35 or 40 years. So I think if I were listening to this and I'm curious on what can my withdrawal rate be, I would suggest a few resources. One, our website, premieriwm.com. I would request a retirement income analysis. And then I would also take a look at a guide that we've created. It's called the 10 Critical Steps to Take Before Retirement. Let's get a unique spending plan put in place that is in concert with your goals and values and will, in a way, be your permission slip to spend the money that you've worked hard to accumulate. I don't remember who coined this phrase in our office, but you're either going to spend and enjoy your money or someone else will. So I like to see clients spending and enjoying their money.
And what I think too, Elias, is I said this last week, everything's better in a bull market. If you have some milestone expenses now, if you want to help a grandchild out now with college expenses, in your balance sheet, your balances on your 401ks and your IRAs are higher. It's a lot easier to take withdrawals from your retirement accounts right now. When we're in a recession, even though your balances are a lot lower, it may make you feel, Doug, that you're not as wealthy.
Yeah.
And people are hesitant to draw on their retirement accounts during a recession. I've seen this before. I've seen multimillionaires that have severe hay fever that usually get their grass cut by the neighbor boy.
Yeah.
He or she's out there cutting the grass, blowing their nose like crazy just because we're in a recession. And they feel
like they got to cut
They
back.
feel a little bit poor. They feel not as wealthy as they were before. So I would say go for it now. Get a financial plan, but everything's better in a bull market. Now is the time to take some money out of the retirement accounts that you have.
You know, I find these rates that we were kind of talking over on there, 3.3, 4.7, you know, all these different numbers, kind of interesting. I remember running a plan where we went and we ran through the rate. They had an 11% withdrawal rate. Now, it was for a 2-year period of time. Right. So we basically front loaded a lot of the contributions or a lot of the distributions coming out of the 401k and then significantly dropped it a little bit later on. But for them, in order for their plan to run optimally, they were pulling a lot more out of investments. And we designed a portfolio that made that work. But they were pulling a lot more out of investments in the early parts of that retirement compared to a little bit later on when we were replacing those with other sources of income and other legs of the stool, so to speak.
Yeah.
I can think of 2 situations recently that I'm reminded of when Jonas says things are better in a bull market. Had a client call and ask about taking a large chunk of money out to remodel a kitchen. That remodel's paid for and gains in the portfolio. Why wouldn't you do it? Another lady called, wanted to buy a car for her granddaughter. It's all gains. Why? Like, what would stop you from doing it? It's all gains in your portfolio. Go ahead, buy her a car, right? And if you have this sentiment, well, I'm spending her inheritance, I think she's going to enjoy that car today just as much as she may in the future as well.
Yeah.
Here's that $5, Elias, for me. Making him sound good there.
And in reality, too, I think that part of that as well, Elias, is that you're going to have that psychological satisfaction knowing that you can watch their life become easier by having that car for them. You all say give with a warm hand rather than a cold hand, which is really one of those stunning things. It all comes down to having a financial plan. And again, if you want the 4%'s really a 30,000-foot thing, it's something that maybe you're thinking about it and you're thinking about retirement. You're going, and you're noodling over it and you're penciling out some numbers. They at Premier Investments and Wealth Management have custom software that's designed to do this. So you don't have to stick with a rule of thumb, okay? You can get something that's tailored to you to fit your needs very easily at premieriwm.com. Click Get Started. You can start there, or you can even call and make an appointment today at 800-383-6590. Casey Mushrush, Sharon asks you, I inherited an IRA from my aunt last year. I'm worried that withdrawals could push me into a higher tax bracket. What is the smartest way for me to take the money out over time?
Sharon, this is a great question, something that we see not infrequently. So when people pass away and they still have money in an IRA and they leave it to someone, there are, the next question, of course, is, what do I do now? So there are a couple of things that we want to make sure that we take a look at. This really is going to depend on what your current age is, when you plan to retire, and what your overall income strategy really looks like. The timing is going to have a large impact on that ultimate tax strategy, and doing the planning ahead of time really makes all the difference. So just a couple of things we have to keep in mind here. This is a non-spouse beneficiary, meaning that with a few exceptions, you're going to be following something called the 10-year rule. Now, essentially what that means is by the end of year 10, so as an example, we're here in 2025, in 2035, that account needs to be spent down to zero. There needs to be $0 left at the end of that account. So there is a 10-year rule that it must be distributed within the 10-year time frame following the original owner's death. Now, depending on the relationship to the decedent, you might also have an annual required minimum distribution requirement that you have to pull out each year. So RMDs might actually impact you if they would have impacted the original owner. So you would have to pull out a minimal amount every single year over that 10-year time frame. Now, the big answer to your question really is about managing the timing on those withdrawals. Now, if you're still working, maybe it's looking at, and you're relatively young, maybe it's an equalization strategy. And what I mean by that is in year 1, you take 1/10 of the account. In year 2, you take 1/9 of the account. In year 3, you take 1/8, and so on until you pull the entire account value out at the end of that time frame. That would be roughly approximately the same dollars pulled out of that account each year, and that smooths that overall tax ride for you over that time frame. You have a lot of predictability in terms of those distributions. Another option, if you're a little bit closer to retirement, let's say that you inherited this account when you were 58 years old and you were planning on retiring at 64 or 66. You could pull out the minimum amounts if you have that requirement and then utilize this account to front load your retirement distributions. So rather than pulling out of your own retirement accounts, use the inherited funds in order to fund those lifestyle expenses for the first year or 2 or 3, depends on the amount of dollars that you would actually be receiving. Now, if you're self-employed, there is another strategy that is maybe a little bit more sophisticated, or if you have variable income, you could also possibly offset some of those taxable distributions coming from an inherited pre-tax traditional IRA by increasing your pre-tax contributions over into your other retirement accounts. Now, what I mean by this, let's say, for example, you are a sole proprietor or you have a sole member LLC, something that is generating Schedule C income, so you're a contractor of some sort. You could set up your own retirement plan, and if under this equalization strategy, you were going to be pulling approximately $10,000 out every single year, you could pull out the $10,000 out of the inherited IRA. That creates taxable income. And then if you have the income somewhere else, you can contribute it back into a SEP IRA, a simple IRA, a solo 401k plan in order to essentially do a tax exchange at that point. So I've generated $10,000 of additional income, and then I've made a contribution, and I've gotten a $10,000 deduction. Well, in terms of net tax, the total on that is zero. My $10,000 offsets my $10,000. So really in a situation like that, we're simply shifting that from the pre-tax beneficiary account over into a pre-tax account underneath your own Social Security number where you have maybe more time to grow those assets as well.
Sure, this can get complicated. It's a great question to ask, and it's a great question to ask professionals like the professionals at Premier Investments and Wealth Management. They deal with this on a regular basis. It's good that you got in touch with them. PremierIWM.com is the website. While you're there, you can find all sorts of really neat stuff. The Premier Investments Investors Guide Series. All sorts of information for all sorts of markets, all sorts of situations in life that find you where you are personally. Maybe you're in your 40s. Maybe you have retirements just 5-10 years down the road. Maybe you're making that embarkment into retirement right now. Get in touch with them at Premier Investments in Wealth Management, PremierIWM.com. 800-383-6590. Premier Investments in Wealth Management named to Forbes 2025 Best in State Wealth Management Teams. Jonas, Michael has a question for you. He says, my wife and I retired in January, just replaced our water heater. It depleted a big chunk of our emergency fund. Oh, the emergency fund question. Do we need to rebuild that emergency fund, or is that not relevant now that we're retired and we can withdraw from our investments as needed?
Michael, to put it simply, cash is king. And yes, it is smart to build up the emergency fund because you're going to have some unexpected expenses in retirement. It sounds like, Michael, that you're a homeowner. You had to replace your water heater.
Mm-hmm.
My boat owners have an acronym for their boat, Doug. Do you know what that is? Bring out another 1,000.
Yeah.
Because they always have to repair their boats. I have an acronym for homes.
Yeah.
You guys want to hear it?
Yeah.
Holy cow, oh my gosh, more expenses. That's what homes stand for. And if your home is over 20 years old like mine, you're looking at anywhere from 1% to 3%, probably on the 3% side just for normal expenses. Any remodeling cost, and I know if this goes to the West Coast and East Coast and Chicago, any remodeling cost in the Midwest, 10 to 13,000. I'm sure some people are falling off their chair and would love to spend 10 to 13,000 on remodeling costs. One of the things too, it prevents you having a spare tire or an emergency fund. It prevents you from having to go into your investments and taking money out at the wrong time. And I think that this is what we call, I think the fancy term is a sequence of returns, but just picture if we're in a recession and you don't have an emergency fund, Doug, and you have to start tapping into your investments and they're 30% down, that would be the worst time to do it.
And what's the tax liability for you and things?
Absolutely. What's the tax liability? And I had a situation with a family friend to where it almost reaches a point where people are taking, when you start taking lump sums out of your retirement accounts, you start treating your money like a piggy bank, your retirement kind of like a piggy bank.
Yeah.
I had a family friend just start taking withdrawals. It started with one lump sum for a retaining wall. And exactly what you said, Doug, she didn't factor into the taxes on that. So the next year came by, tax season, she didn't have enough taxes to pay enough money to pay her taxes. She had to take another withdrawal out of her retirement account. Well, now, lo and behold, she has about 85% the balance of what she had to start with just by taking lump sums out of her retirement account. So back to your question, Michael, yes, please replace that emergency fund at least back to the level before you had to take a chunk out to pay for the water heater.
And I know you like to call them spare tires as well. You recommend having more than one emergency fund as well, because especially something like that, if you can figure out a way to do it, it helps you from having to dig deep into anything else.
Right. And there's a lot of people that buy into the philosophy of threes, right? I'm not necessarily that person, but when one thing breaks down in my house, it usually tends to be two other things, so a total of three. So, a second spare tire is what I call that, and that comes in handy. And the nice thing is, again, you're not touching your investments. You have control of your investments. You can touch them by adding a layer of that retirement income strategy onto your investments. You're not going in and ripping out a lump sum.
It's easier to deal with emergencies in a bull market. Just like you said, everything's better in a bull market.
That's right. Absolutely right.
What if you had to replace your water?
Better?
Yeah. What if you had to replace your water heater in a bear market in a recession? That'd probably be more painful.
If Doug was in a recession, he would just take cold showers.
I do anyway. So it's cheaper. It wakes me up.
So I will say one thing, Jonas. And anybody who has been listening to the radio show for more than about 5 years, I think we have a new golden goose. With the holy cow, oh my gosh, more expenses as the acronym. I think it is the new golden goose.
That is good.
Thank you, Casey.
Tell you what, if you're interested, go to premieriwm.com. They have a guide on there that you can download. It's called Navigating Market Volatility. It's something that you may be interested in because, it's not just the market volatility, but it talks about making sure that you have a good plan that fits where you are in life for you, your husband, for your family. And it just makes sense to do that. Have a plan. It creates so much nicer sleep at night. I mean, it's like the idea of, I'm going to drive to New York City and I'm not even going to get out a map or a GPS. I'm just going to point the car east and go. Well, I know if I'm like in far northern Iowa, there's an entire bridge that's out that there's 90 minutes of a detour on that. What happens if you don't know about these things? Get a plan. Make sure you have professionals helping to lead the way for you at Premier Investments and Wealth Management, premieriwm.com. Named to Forbes 2025 Best in Wealth Best Management Teams. Call them at 800-383-6590. This is really interesting. I'm going to frame this question for you, Elias. I heard here recently, most recent things they said is that the return up to the year at this point, we're recording this, is that the Dow is up roughly 7 to 8%. The S&P 500 is up 14 to 16%. The NASDAQ is up 22+%. Derek says, my portfolio hasn't kept up with the stock market lately, and it's making me nervous. How do I know if my investments are truly underperforming or if it's just part of a diversified plan? I mean, you've got a pretty wild swing between that 6 to 8% all the way up to 22% between the Dow and the NASDAQ. So when people who, maybe they're making 7% on their money, but at the same time, they hear about something else that's going wildly crazy, they can feel like, oh, I'm underperforming even when they're not doing so badly.
Derek, comparison is the thief of joy. A couple things to consider. Is it fair to compare your overall portfolio to just the S&P 500? I'm going to talk about where that is fair.
Right.
So at Premier, we implement our Premier bucket strategy, and the money you have set aside for growth, I think it is okay to compare that strategy to the S&P 500. And you should be performing within the ballpark of that on a relative basis. And what I mean by that is if you have a growth strategy invested in the stock market, equity markets,
yeah,
and you look and the S&P 500's up 15, it's okay to be in that ballpark. Mm-hmm. And you should be right around there. Here's where it's not fair to compare your total portfolio to just the S&P 500, and a way to start thinking maybe this is part of a more diversified plan. So I'm going to talk about the bucket strategy specifically. Your liquid bucket, the money that is there for spending, that money's not designed for growth. So to compare that to a measure of the large cap growth companies in America, not a fair comparison.
Okay.
Even your income bucket, for that matter, depending on the level of risk you want to assign there, probably not a fair place to compare how that strategy is doing compared to large cap growth companies. Here's what I want investors to do. Let's define your optimal portfolio and your capacity for risk. And let's invest in a portfolio that is designed to accomplish your goals and in line with your values as well. Mm-hmm. And then we don't have to worry. If you have a portfolio doing that for you, we don't have to worry about comparing returns to a measure of the overall market. And as I mentioned, comparison is the thief of joy.
I wrote that down.
Good.
I like that.
And here's what I found over the years. Retired folks, here's what they're concerned about. How much money they're spending. Is this money going to last? Can they spend time with their friends and family? Can they spoil their grandkids? Like, let's have a income strategy and a portfolio that facilitates all those things, and then we don't have to worry about comparing things that, what good is that going to do? Are you living the life you want to live? Are you spending the type of money you want to spend? So I would imagine that Derek does have a diversified plan. I wouldn't worry about underperforming. I would worry about my goals being accomplished.
Well, I think, too, kind of along with what you mentioned, that fair rate of return goal really answers that question. So you're underperforming compared to these indices, but are you actually underperforming compared to what your goal is? Developing that fair rate of return answers exactly that question.
It does.
Yeah. Questions asked, questions answered. And that's one of the important things as well. It's One of those for me is like I got to thinking about this after you brought it up, is that I've got my IRA, I've got my 401k, maybe I've got some, taxable investments that are over here. If every single one of them is invested in exactly the same thing, that is not diversifying. I mean, because the root of so much of what so many people do is an S&P 500 index fund. You may look inside all of your investments and you look underneath the hood and you see the exact same 15 companies that are all part of that. But that's something when you get a financial professional like the wealth advisors from Premier Investments and Wealth Management, they can help you get an understanding.
It's funny you mentioned that.
Mhm.
I remember looking at a portfolio for somebody once, and they owned 15 different positions. It was all the same thing.
Of the same thing.
It was 15 of the same thing
Yeah.
duplicated across 4 different firms. And I asked them that question. I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, well, I'm diversifying. I'm like, you own the same thing.
I
It
know.
was the same thing in just 15 different places.
Yeah.
And one
I
thing
think-
Derek can do real quick too is I'm talking to a lot of new people. They don't even know what they own
Mhm.
to begin with in their 401ks. They just set it and forget it. Come on in, figure out what you own, and then get comfortable with what you own or develop a new portfolio.
I told Mark it was time for me to come in. I mean, literally said when I was walking through into the studio today, I said, Mark, I'm bringing it in because we had a really good year up to this point, and I want to make sure that I'm doing what I need in order to preserve and extend. Let's do this. Because every single time, again, there's nothing better than the bull market, but you got to make sure that you rebalance, and that means knowing what you're in.
Every rebalance is better in a bull market, Doug.
Amen.
Here's the
Amen.
other. I'm going to bring up one other side of this equation with performance.
Mhm.
Let's assume Derek was outperforming
Mhm.
this year. If you're going to outperform on the way up, you should be prepared to outperform on the way down too.
Okay.
Typically, outperformance comes with a higher level of risk. So all that may feel good, but then ask yourself,
Mhm.
am I willing to do worse on the way down too?
Yeah.
And if you can accept that level of risk, maybe those are good strategies for you. But there's no right or wrong way in investing, and everything comes with trade-offs and risk. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. And you know what? Then some of that too, the investment amount, the amount total that you have in that account, you may get to that point where I look at a 1% movement day over day, and I'm like, whoa, I did not expect that. I mean, because it's been sitting there, but it hits that magic number, and I don't even know what it is, but it was like, wow, that is big. But like you said, be ready to go, wow, that is big.
Well,
Don't get
I-
anchored to account values.
I think there's another aspect of that too that we haven't gone into a whole lot, which is simply from what is it that you're wanting to beat the market or be at the market? Like, what is actually causing that level of nervousness? And I think if we can
Well-
answer that question, I think we can really dig into what is it that you're trying to accomplish more so than anything else. And the reason that I'm thinking about this, I can recall a conversation I had with somebody, and it was actually very similar to this. And it was, okay, well, tell me why you think that we should be closer. Now, this is a very conservative investor. They were just very, very conservatively oriented, but they came in and asked me a question very similar to that. And I said to him, well, why do you feel like you need to be meeting the market? Oh, I just thought that's what everybody should be doing right now, was really what the answer was. It's like, okay, well, that's not how you're invested. So again, Jonas, to your point, let's understand and talk about what it is that you own. Okay, let's rerun it over through the financial plan and see you're still above your fair rate of return goal, so you're perfectly going to be fine. But let's move ourselves into a situation here. Instead of having that targeted rate of return of 6%, let's say you got 12. So you have 6% more this year compared to what you would have had. Then what? Nothing would have changed. They just still gone to the same places. They just still spent the same level of money. Nothing would have actually been impacted in terms of their daily life. It was just a number on the page that may have had a little bit more of an emotional reaction more so than anything else, but it wouldn't have actually impacted them at all.
Everything in our business is just commonly compared to that. So, I mean,
Yeah.
portfolio managers, that's how they benchmark their performance. And it's something people talk about. But most of the time, in my opinion, if a retail investor says, well, I need to beat the market, I don't think they'd be able to lift the hood and even begin to, for themselves, define how someone would even go about doing that.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Sage advice.
Oh, telling me. Premier Investments in Wealth Management at premieriwm.com or call for your appointment today, 800-383-6590 with Jonas Everett, Elias Randel, and Dr. Casey Mushrush.
Just you, Doug.
Kathy asks you, Casey, my husband and I are both 60. We're hoping to retire soon, but we're worried about the cost of health care before we qualify for Medicare. What's the best way to plan for that gap without draining our savings too quickly? When does Medicare start?
This is a very timely question. Age 65 is generally Medicare age. There are a few exceptions on that. So, for example, renal failure and some other things on that side that you can qualify for that a little bit earlier. Not typically used under most circumstances. But age 65 is the answer to your, Doug. That's the answer you're looking for.
Appreciate it.
Kathy, this is a great question. Really timely, I think, especially right now, just given the overall political environment and what we see happening over in the health insurance marketplace. Understanding that overall cost of healthcare is a huge challenge right now, even compared to a historical perspective. Now, at the end of the day, really what we have to do is we have to add a line item over into that financial plan in order to include healthcare expenses as a budgetary expense and plan for it on the front end of it. This is a major expense, especially for somebody who is looking at early retirement. This is one of the largest expenses that we see on that line item for a lot of people. Especially between that ages 60, 65 before Medicare does kick in. And we have to make sure that we include those over within your retirement plan so that it isn't a surprise, but it becomes a part of the plan of items that we are going to be paying for within our overall cash flow projections. Now, most financial planning software will be able to have some sort of a healthcare module that can utilize healthcare costs based off of current insurance premiums. We can also use maximum out-of-pocket expenses underneath various different planning types. And estimating those is a really important part. And then also including maybe an inflation adjustment that is higher than standard inflation, because we have a tendency to see the healthcare and the medical cost go up faster than normal insurance or normal retirement expenses. Now, other options, depending on when you're looking at doing retirement, maybe there's a qualification for 18 months for COBRA. That's continuation of the retirement or the continuation of benefits for an individual who loses benefits through work. So maybe COBRA can help cover some of that gap. However, you are then likely going to be covering the entire cost of that plan. Typically, most employers will subsidize the healthcare expenses for employees. COBRA benefits, typically that's not the case. You're paying for the full amount. Maybe there's some COBRA benefits that it does make a little bit more sense to continue to do that. There is private insurance available through the ACA, the Affordable Care Act marketplace plans. One thing that I will say that has been interesting in the last little bit has been whether or not we're going to continue to see, and at what levels, any premium tax credits. So that is something that when we run through a financial plan or when we run through that with individuals, I don't plan on there being any premium tax credits. Unfortunately, we say you're going to be on the hook for the entirety of this healthcare expense allocation. And if we get some premium tax credit, great. That just means that you either don't have that spending or you can redirect those dollars somewhere else. HSA funds, so health savings accounts, are actually, if you have those available, they can be strategically utilized in order to help cover the cost of premiums, help cover the cost of insurance between that age 60 to 65, and allow you to possibly have tax-free distributions coming out of various different accounts in order to cover those particular costs. So one thing that we do want to make sure is that we are probably a little bit more aggressive or higher on our estimates. And then if you end up spending a little bit less, you can redirect those dollars or just keep them over within the financial plan or keep them over within the accounts. And then you have those available for using, for utilization for later. But the best way really is just to plan for those costs intentionally, estimate that overall expense, build in an increase or an inflation adjustment higher than whatever your standard inflation adjustment is, and then adjust your savings and distributions plan accordingly.
You can go to premieriwm.com and you can click on Contact Us and you can request a retirement healthcare analysis. And even before Medicare begins, you can figure out a way to retire confidently. Healthcare is one of those things that is going to be more expensive. It doesn't seem like it goes down in price. But the important thing is that more than likely, if you're listening to this show or you're watching this show on YouTube, you probably care about your financial future, which means you care about your physical future as well. The best thing that you can do for your retirement is take care of yourself. If you don't have an exercise plan, work with your doctor, get one. The fitter that you get sooner, the better off that you're going to be, and you can work to reduce the amount of money that you spend on medicine, medical in the future. PremierIWM.com is the website, 800-383-6590. Premier Investments in Wealth Management named Forbes 2025 Best in State Wealth Management Teams. Jonas, Jim wants to know, I'm about 5 years from retirement. Just want to know one thing. How do I turn my savings into a paycheck I can count on once I stop working?
Great question, Jim. You're looking for a reliable retirement paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with get educated now on income investing. And what I mean by that is once you have probably, I call them four, you remember the three-legged retirement stool,
Yeah.
Doug? I have a four-legged retirement stool now when it comes to income investing.
Okay.
So you have to take into consideration taxes, market conditions, longevity and inflation, and the timing of Jim's Social Security and any pensions that he may have. We already talked about the 4% rule quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump down, and there's another strategy. You know how retired people, when they reach age 73 in their retirement accounts, Doug, they have to take their required distribution. There's a strategy that people actually take their distribution at any age that they retire, and that's a percentage that they can take out. That's a strategy. I like the strategy of asking people when I first go in and collect the data for their financial plan. I ask them this, Doug, have you ever received dividends from any companies before? And what do you do with your dividends?
Reinvest.
Yeah, I get that a lot. But sometimes people, and there's a couple of factories in town, and there's an avionics hub that we have in town that pay dividends. A lot of people are familiar with receiving dividends, and they either reinvest them or they get a little paycheck in the mail. Now it's deposited into their checking account. Jim, I like the strategy, if it's doable for you, 5 years when you retire, maybe we'll start, after we do a financial plan, maybe we'll start just taking your interest and dividends out initially. And what I've seen, Doug, the financially successful people in retirement, if they're not spending their interest and dividends, like Casey said in an earlier show, if they're just parking that, if we're paying the taxes and we're parking that in the bank account, then I know that they're living a financially successful retirement. I know that they're not having to pinch because they're actually saving money. If you're saving money in retirement, that's an A+ score for me.
It works. It definitely works. If you go to PremierIWM.com, they have a lot of downloadable things there. Investor's Guide series. It includes 10 critical steps to take before retirement. And Jim, this is really something, you download this, get in touch with Jonas, one of the guys over here. Sit down, have a meeting with them, and walk through your financial plan. If you already have a financial plan, if you already have a wealth advisor, great. It doesn't hurt to kick the tires and get a second opinion, okay? That way you find out exactly maybe there's something you're missing that the folks over at Premier Investments in Wealth Management can help you find. But again, PremierIWM.com, download the guide, 10 critical steps to take before retirement, or call 800-383-6590. Barry asks, we used to rebalance our investments when we were working. Now that we're retired and drawing income, should we still be rebalancing once per year? Elias, interesting question. We talked about rebalancing already once during the program.
Rebalancing is better in a bull market.
I've heard that before.
Where'd you hear that? From yourself? So, and that is true. Rebalancing is better in a bull market. Maybe it's not as easy. Right now, a great question all investors could ask themselves. When was the last time I rebalanced this portfolio? Is this portfolio still in line with my overall appetite for risk. And if you really feel, hey, things have been great this year, is it such a bad idea to take some chips off the table? Probably not, especially if you're going to be spending that money. So one piece of advice, let's say next year we're going to remodel our kitchen. Let's take some chips off the table and get prepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
If a bear market rears its ugly head, I know you're going to want to pause that remodel.
Mm-hmm.
As Jonas mentioned earlier, you're not going to feel as good about spending your money. And that's really a wealth effect of recessions and bear markets. People don't feel as good about spending money. So let's get prepared for it now. Rebalancing is also an ongoing strategy. It's not something that you stop doing. And when you enter into retirement, your margin for error goes down significantly. Money mistakes are easier to overcome in your working years.
Right.
When you're retired and now your retirement dollars are your paycheck, you have less margin for error that can happen in your life with your investments, and you'll still be okay. One maybe not simple, but one idea we talk about in personal finance is sequence of return risk. And for the listeners, what that means is, let's say we have a bear market the first year you're retired. So that means market goes down at least 20%. Well, and you sell investments to facilitate your income for that year, you're compounding your losses. So the more you can manage sequence of return risk of when and spending your money, the higher the odds are that you will be successfully retired and be able to stay retired successfully. I don't know anyone who retires and then goes back to work. Or maybe they do, but do they want to go back to work? Probably not. That's a different question. So if you haven't rebalanced recently, I would be asking myself, what's stopping me from doing that? I would consider doing that. And it may just be time for a second set of eyes, a portfolio review, or maybe learn how you can partner with an investment firm that just rebalances for their clients, which is something we do.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to have the same income coming in. Everything's great in the market. Don't let yourself get greedy and think, well, I'm just going to see what can happen, right? You have to have a little bit of discretion to decide when to take chips off the table. And when things are good, it's going to be a lot easier than if things get bad.
Yeah.
And then you'd think, oh, man, I really wish I would have done that.
You're selling out of a loss rather than gains position. And that's
Correct.
Something that could be really, really devastating. Psychology of what they do at Premier Investments and Wealth Management is something that's always been impressive to me because they understand, they do a lot of research, they do a lot of continuing education. They work with a lot of people just like you, just like the dream where you want to be when you retire, whether it's taking care of, some of your kids' education. Maybe it's a dream house that you have on a lake, or maybe a hunting cabin, or maybe it's the RV. That's the latest one that I heard of somebody I know. They decided to do an RV, and they traveled up to Alaska, and now they're traveling all over North America, and they're taking the dog with them, and they're just loving life. You have the capability of doing that, but you need to have the means to do so in retirement. Premier Investments and Wealth Management can help you. PremierIWM.com. Click Get Started right there, or you can call 800-383-6590 at the website. Hit Contact Me or contact us, and you can put your name in. They'll call you. They'll set up an appointment. Online, in person, they'll come to you. You can come to them. There's so many different ways to make that appointment happen. You owe it to yourself today. PremierIWM.com at Premier Investments and Wealth Management. All right, Dr. Casey Mushrush,
Just you, Doug.
One final question for you today. Phil asks, we want to start giving more to our kids and a few charities while we're still here to see it. How can we do that without putting our own income plan at risk?
Phil, great question. This is all about knowing your numbers. So running through a quality financial plan is going to give you that maximum amount of spending that you can pull out of your various different accounts without having to worry about running out of money in the future. And by giving you the confidence of not just taking a wild guess in terms of those distributions. Now, ultimately, when it comes down to this is cash flow management. This is not just guesswork. This is making sure that you understand where's the money coming from and where are you going to be sending it to once it comes in the door. Once you know what that number is on the gross value, how you use it, that's completely and totally up to you. I tell people all the time when we design or we build out a financial plan and we say that you can spend $4,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 a month, I really don't care if you are stuffing it into your mattress and sleeping on it like a princess in a pea, or if you are spending it all on sushi. Doesn't really matter. Once it's out of the plan, as far as I'm concerned, it is spent underneath that particular instance. So really understanding how is that overall cash flow can be utilized and how much you can pull will allow you to develop that charitable giving strategy. Now, once you have decided that you want to give to charity or to individuals and that you know where you're going to direct that, now we can start to come in and say, is there a way that we can do this in a little bit more of a tax efficient manner? Whether it is transferring stock and then shifting over that basis over to somebody else and maybe having somebody with lower income paying capital gains compared to yourself, or utilizing a qualified charitable distribution strategy. Maybe it's gifting stock over to a foundation or to a charitable entity. There's some various different strategies that we can utilize. Utilizing donor-advised funds would be another example for maybe a very large and generating some sort of recurring gift on an annual basis as well. Ultimately, really what you're talking about, Phil, this is warm hand giving. This is something that has permeated a lot of our conversations through the years, and it is how can we make sure that our assets not only take care of us, but that they also can be utilized in a way that is consistent with my values and help promulgate and push forward the things that I think are important out into the world. And so really it's understanding what those overall limits are and staying within that. And when you have a financial plan that really defines that spending ceiling, anything underneath that gives you that level of confidence that you can spend that without actually running into a situation where you are putting your own income plan at risk.
Nice thing about this, guys, is I think you'll agree, is that with Premier Investments in Wealth Management putting the financial plan together and doing all the different scenarios, this frees up Phil and his wife to actually start vetting the nonprofits and the charities that they want to benefit in the future, however they want to do it. And that's something that's important to do too, is on the back end of it, know to whom you will be giving the money and create the relationship with them like you've created the relationship with Premier Investments and Wealth Management. Because the better you know them, Jonas, better you're going to be able to integrate into, what that overall plan is for them and for you.
And it's just having a fantastic backstage here at Premier Investments. You look at the stories, gang, about how many customers call once a week and they want to give their required minimum distribution to their church or a charity. And I think Mark Hunter and the rest of the staff handles that. And we must do 100 of those a year where people are waiting. That's one strategy too for Phil. They're waiting for their distribution age, and they've determined that they don't need that income. They're required to take a distribution out of their retirement. Yeah. And they go ahead, like Casey said, with a warm hand, and they gift that to their charity or their church.
My favorite part in that entire strategy, the only people that miss out on that is the government.
You don't feel sorry for him?
I really don't feel sorry.
We had a philosophy right there. That's good.
Well, he's going to step next time on the 4th of July picnic when he's on those 20-foot stilts. He's going to step on your toes.
I am such a red flag. Like if we ever have anybody listen to this show, I'm such a red flag on it. They're going to be like, "Yeah, we're going to go chase down that guy." Not because I'm doing anything wrong, but just because they want to hassle me.
This is so good. You know what? That's one of the things I've learned so much working with my friends at Premier Investments in Wealth Management. I think that you're going to as well. It's really, when you see them, you get together at holiday parties, they have occasional events, and the people who are clients, who are customers, see themselves as part of the family. There's really a good repartee between everybody. Good conversation is had because Barriers have been broken down. People are not afraid to have difficult conversations because no pain, no gain. And that's the whole point. Premier Investments in Wealth Management. Let them take on the pain of those difficult conversations, having them with you because they've been through it with hundreds of thousands of clients. And they know that your situation is different from everybody else's. But you know what? Having these conversations, it's going to help you. Let them apply their professional expertise to your situation. One-page Premier Vision document. Go to premieriwm.com. Click Get Started, answer a few questions. They'll provide the one-page Premier Vision document, and they'll invite you for a meeting. Free, no obligation. If you come in here to the office, they'll grab you a soda or a cup of coffee, maybe a glass of water as well. Sit down and talk to them about your hopes, your dreams, what you want to achieve, and how you can do it with the assistance of Premier Investments in Wealth Management. Wealth advisors here, Jonas Everett, Elias Randel, and Dr. Casey Mushrush.
Just you, Doug.
I'm Doug Wagner. Thank you for enjoying. Go to premieriwm.com where you can find the podcast and clicks to all the videos for these shows that we do if you want to see our ugly mugs up on your screen. Until next week, we'll talk again.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this show are for general information purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Premier Investments in Wealth Management and LPL Financial do not provide specific individualized tax or legal advice. We suggest that you discuss your specific situation with a qualified tax or legal advisor. Rebalancing a portfolio may cause investors to incur tax liabilities and/or transaction costs, and does not assure a profit or protect against loss. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. All performance referenced is historical and is not a guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of the strategies. Investing involves risks, including possible loss of principal. There is no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. Forbes' Best in State Wealth Management Teams ranking was developed by Shook Research and is based on in-person, virtual, and telephone due diligence meetings and a ranking algorithm that includes a measure of each team's best practices, client retention, industry experience, review of compliance records, firm nominations, and quantitative criteria, including assets under management and revenue generated for their firm. Investment performance is not a criterion because client objectives and risk tolerances vary, and advisors rarely have audited performance reports. Shook's research and rankings provide opinions intended to help investors choose the right financial advisor and team, and are not indicative of future performance or representative of any one client's experience. Past performance is not an indication of future results. Neither Forbes nor Shook Research receive compensation in exchange for placement on the ranking. For more information, please see www.shookresearch.com. Shook is a registered trademark of Shook Research, LLC.